So, if you're a PhD student and you are using a tool like the NS3 simulator, you've probably felt it, right? There's this massive shift happening. And the thing is, the rise of AI and large language models isn't just another new tool for your toolbox. No, it's actually changing the fundamental rules of the game, what even counts as original, defensible research.
Look, let's just get this out of the way. Doing a PhD has never been a walk in the park. It's always been an absolute marathon of intellectual heavy lifting, sheer persistence, and way too many late nights. That's the baseline we're all starting from. But here's the twist. That marathon you signed up for? It now has a whole new set of obstacles you never saw coming. The old standards, what used to be considered novel, what used to be considered a huge effort, they're just not enough anymore. The goalposts haven't just moved. They're in a completely different stadium now. And this quote right here, this absolutely nails the new challenge. It's no longer good enough to just show your code or your plots or your results. You now have to actively defend the originality of your entire thought process. You have to constantly prove why your work is something special, something that couldn't have just been spit out by an AI in a few minutes.
You have to get your head around this new reality. Back in the day, if a task was really hard, that was seen as a measure of human effort and dedication. Today, everyone, from your supervisor to your final examiners, they start with a default assumption. They assume you had AI help, and that assumption changes everything.
Okay, so given this new landscape, what kind of research is now just, well, too risky? Let's talk about the new danger zones. These are the topics that you should probably steer clear of if you can.
First on the list, pure performance comparison studies. You know the one. Let's take protocol A, compare it to protocol B, and plot the throughput. The problem is, an LLM can probably write the simulation scripts for that and generate the plots almost instantly. Your contribution starts to look less like deep research and more like a simple automated task. Next up is what I call the slightly improved version paper, taking a famous, well-established protocol and just making a tiny tweak to it. That is a really dangerous path to go down now. A reviewer is going to immediately jump on that and ask, okay, is this a real fundamental breakthrough, or did you just tune a few parameters until you got a slightly better number? And that is a very, very tough question to defend. And then there's the big one, the temptation to just, sprinkle some ML on it. Just using a powerful simulator like NS3 as a dumb data generator for some neural network, without a really deep system-level reason for doing it, that's a huge red flag. Reviewers are getting really good at spotting what some are calling decorative ML, and trust me, they are not impressed by it. All right, so we've talked about the danger zones, and yeah, it might sound a little intimidating. But this brings us to the most important part. What kind of research is still strong? What's defensible? What's going to future-proof your PhD? Now let's be super clear about this. Research using NS3 is not dead. Not even close. It's still an incredibly powerful, important tool. What's changed is the kind of questions we're expected to answer with it. The bar for what's considered an acceptable, novel contribution, it's just been raised significantly.
So the first strong area is fundamental modeling. I'm talking about creating brand new models based on actual physics and real-world observations. Things like, how do radio waves really travel through a new environment? Or how does a device's battery actually drain under specific conditions? An AI can't just invent correct physical assumptions from thin air. That requires deep human expertise. Another really solid path is to contribute to the simulator's architecture itself. This could mean building a whole new module for NS3, or integrating it with another complex scientific tool, or even making the core of the simulator faster or more accurate. This is code-level originality. You can literally point to it and say, I built that. It's audible, it's defensible, and it's something that current AI really struggles to do with large, complex systems.
How about designing systems for extreme scenarios? Think about it. Communication networks for disaster relief zones, massive satellite swarms, or even deep space missions. These are areas where there's very little, if any, public data for an AI to train on. Success here doesn't come from pattern recognition. It comes from true, creative engineering judgment.
And finally, this validation-oriented research. This is the hard, gritty work of taking your simulation results and rigorously comparing them against actual, real-world measurements. In a world that's about to be flooded with AI-generated papers and results, being the person who can prove that your work is grounded in reality, that gives you an immense, almost unfair amount of credibility. So, how do you actually do this kind of defensible research? Well, it's not about just finding a small gap anymore. It really requires a new, deliberate, and much more structured approach right from day one. This is the modern playbook. It's broken down into 6 critical phases. And I want you to notice how it starts with problem selection and really emphasizes modeling before you even get to implementation. It's a deliberate journey from start to finish, and every single step has to be intentional because it all culminates in a thesis that needs to scream intellectual ownership. And that first phase, problem selection, is easily the most important. Before you commit years of your life to a research topic, you have to ask yourself one very simple, very scary question. If the answer is yes, or even a maybe, you need to find a harder problem. Period.
All of this work, all this deliberate planning, it all leads to the final showdown, your Ph.D. defense. And in the age of AI, the defense has become more important than ever. It is the ultimate human filter.
See, your examiners aren't just going to ask you what you did. They're going to dig deep. They're going to probe your understanding with questions exactly like these. They want to know the why behind your choices. They want to know if you understand your work's limitations. They want to see if you can reflect on your own process. These aren't questions a script can answer for you. They're designed to separate true understanding from a well-polished facade.
And really, the outcome here is binary. If you have that genuine, deep understanding of your work, you will pass. It doesn't even matter if an AI helped you fix your typos or polish your grammar. But if you relied on AI for the core thinking, for those critical decisions, your defense will expose that weakness, and it will expose it within minutes. So that brings us to the final reality check. The era where a slightly above average effort could get you a PhD is over. It's gone. We have officially entered a new age, one that demands deep, defensible, system-level thinking.
When it all comes down to it, just remember this. AI is not the enemy of research. It's the enemy of shallow research. It's raised the bar for everyone, and in a way, it's forcing the entire academic world to refocus on problems that are genuinely difficult, truly meaningful, and worth solving.
You see, success in this new era isn't about avoiding AI. It's actually about being more human. It's about deep understanding, thoughtful building, honest explanation, and the rigorous, passionate defense of your ideas. That is something no AI can replicate. And in the age of AI, that is exactly how you're going to succeed.